Do all of the hate, all of the getting benched, the funny lineups, they got her playing small forward. It did not matter. You know why? You can't stop God's work. It was written. It was written. This is God's work. Caitlyn Clark wins MVP.
After spending 8 months away from competitive basketball and beginning the tournament with 3 straight games on the bench, all eyes were already filled with doubt. The coaching staff kept rotating the lineup, leaving fans and analysts questioning every decision. Yet once the 5-game stretch concluded and the votes were finalized, Caitlyn Clark still walked away with the MVP award. Critics had the entire tournament to build a solid case against her, but in the end, they had nothing. Drop a comment below. Do you believe Caitlyn Clark claiming MVP after an 8-month absence and limited early minutes is the ultimate answer to her doubters so far? Or could an even bigger statement still be on the horizon? Let us know your thoughts.
They mad. They big mad. They are flaming right now. Caitlyn Clark, in her return to basketball, like 8 months off, all these injuries, all of this stuff, the girl shows up and wins MVP just like that.
Let's call this situation exactly what it is. Caitlyn Clark stepped away from competitive basketball for 8 months. 8 full months. That is not a typical gap between seasons or a short-term injury absence labeled week to week. 8 months is more than enough time for a player to lose conditioning, lose rhythm, and lose the natural feel for live basketball that only comes from facing real competition. Returning after that kind of layoff is challenging even for top-tier athletes. The rust is real. The need to readjust is real. The doubts about whether a player is truly back are real. And in response to every one of those valid concerns, Clark went out and led the entire FIBA Women's World Cup qualifying tournament in assists, averaged 11.6 points per game as Team USA's second leading scorer, topped her team in efficiency, posted the best plus-minus on the roster, and still walked away with the MVP award.
See here, standing in front of us, and the TISO MVP of the tournament, Puerto Rico.
All of it came during a comeback run that began with her coming off the bench in the first 3 games. Her critics had every built-in edge throughout this tournament. They pointed to the 8-month layoff. They leaned on the fact that she did not start the opening 3 games. They even used the coaching staff's decision as supposed proof that she might not be fully ready, that her return was still incomplete, that the concerns surrounding her comeback had real weight. Every one of those points served as fuel for the claim that Clark was still regaining her rhythm and that the MVP would go to someone who had been playing consistently rather than returning from a long break. But once the tournament played out, every single one of those arguments was a truly begins, because 6.4 assists per game to lead the entire tournament is not a figure that happens by chance or simply because of circumstance. It is produced by reading the floor quicker than everyone else, by making decisions at a tempo that forces defenses to react before they are set, and by repeatedly placing teammates in ideal scoring positions. That is a distinct and exceptional skill, one that does not fade during 8 months of recovery and is not affected by coming off the bench instead of starting. Paige Bueckers did not finish among the top 3 in assists. Kelsey Plum was not leading the field in that category. Rhyne Howard's scoring stood out, but her playmaking numbers were not on the same level. When you evaluate every player who participated in this qualifying tournament and stack up the assist totals, one name clearly rises above the rest by a decisive margin, making the MVP choice obvious. Caitlyn Clark.
Caitlyn Clark is officially the MVP of the FIBA Women's World Cup qualifier tournament that was just held in Puerto Rico. Team USA went undefeated. And it's kind of crazy because Caitlyn Clark actually only started 1 game in this entire tournament, but clearly she had the greatest impact. The coach at times was also playing her in like the 3-4 position, which is so wild. She's a true point guard and literally everyone does better when she is running the point. And she led the team in assists per game with 6.4 per game. And she also led the team in efficiency at a 14.6, which is something that FIBA uses, the WNBA and NBA don't. But essentially it's a math equation that figures out your efficiency on the court. And
the plus-minus figure deserves to be emphasized again because it stands as the most undeniable evidence against those who spent the tournament trying to downplay her impact. Plus 104 across 5 games. That means whenever Clark was on the floor, Team USA outscored opponents by a total of 104 more points compared to when she was off it. Not per game, but combined over all 5 matchups. The difference in performance with her involved versus without her was clear and significant. 3 of those games began with her coming off the bench. The coaching staff used that stretch to experiment with different lineups, rotating starting units, and testing various offensive setups. Yet the consistent trend throughout was simple. The more Clark was integrated into the action, the better the results became. In the game against New Zealand, her first start, the team delivered a 55-point blowout, the second largest winning margin of the entire tournament. At this stage, the link between Clark initiating the offense from the opening tip and Team USA reaching its highest level is no longer theoretical. It is clearly reflected in the box scores from 5 straight games. Those who tried to credit Team USA's success solely to its overall talent advantage had to contend with the plus-minus statistic standing directly in opposition to that claim. It becomes impossible to argue that a player is not impactful when the team outscores opponents by more than 100 points during her minutes, only for that margin to shrink when she is off the floor. The numbers speak for themselves. Now shift the focus to the comeback itself, because it introduces a dimension that statistics alone cannot fully explain. Returning after 8 months away is not just a physical hurdle, it is a mental one as well. Game rhythm, split-second decision-making, comfort against live defensive pressure, and the confidence to make bold plays in transition all come from real competition, not just practice. No matter how well-structured a rehabilitation program may be, nothing can truly replace live game experience when it comes to regaining those elements. Clark appeared physically different entering this tournament compared to the latter part of last season. She looked leaner, faster, and moved with a level of fluidity that stood out from the opening game. For those paying close attention, it suggested that her time away was not only about recovering from injury, but also about resetting her body in ways that could elevate her effectiveness moving forward. The deep logo threes returned. The behind-the-back ball-handling sequences reappeared. The full-court passes that spark transition before defenses can react were back as well. All of it showed up within her first 5 competitive games after an 8-month absence, against professional international competition, all while dealing with the uncertainty of not knowing from one game to the next whether she would be starting or coming off the bench. This is the context in which Clark's MVP performance took place, and it gives the award significance beyond just the numbers that earned it. The fan vote during the tournament added its own subplot, which helps explain how the MVP story unfolded. FIBA ran a public poll asking fans who should be named MVP of the qualifying stage. Clark led the vote early on, but then the count began shifting in suspicious ways. Thousands of votes appeared in short bursts for other candidates, sparking accusations of automated voting and creating chaos across the online basketball community. The poll became a controversy in itself, and the legitimacy of the results was widely questioned. But here's the key point about the official MVP announced by FIBA. It wasn't decided by fan voting. It was based on the actual basketball played over 5 games. And when the official announcement named Clark as MVP of the FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup qualifying tournament, there was no dispute. There were no serious challenges to her selection. No credible alternative emerged that the basketball community could point to as more deserving. The bot-flooded fan poll didn't matter because Clark's on-court performance made the official choice undeniable. Paige Bueckers had strong moments throughout the tournament. Together, she and Clark showed the potential for a truly dynamic backcourt when both were at their best. The New Zealand game offered a glimpse of that synergy, both moving fluidly, connecting, and creating stress for the defense from multiple angles. But Bueckers did not rank in the top 3 for assists during the tournament. She did not lead Team USA in efficiency, and she was not the player whose plus-minus indicated the team performed significantly better when she was on the court. The MVP was obvious, and it was not Bueckers. Ryan Howard's scoring was certainly strong enough to earn attention, and her name entered the MVP conversation. But the fact that many of Howard's opportunities came directly from Clark's facilitation complicates any argument for Howard over Clark. When a player is generating significant scoring chances for a teammate, the creator has a compelling case for individual recognition. The first game of the tournament demonstrated this clearly. Howard outscored Clark by 4 points, Yet more than half of those points came from shots set up by Clark's assists. Even giving the player of the game nod to Howard in that matchup was debatable. After 5 games of cumulative performance, awarding the tournament MVP to anyone other than Clark would have been indefensible. The road to the World Cup in Berlin now runs directly through the lessons of this qualifying tournament. Team USA earned their spot with a flawless 5-0 record.